Wednesday, so that means, and we are in Mark chapter 5, and we're going to pick up in verse 21. Now, here we go. We're going to start the timer here. All right, here's what we read. When Jesus had crossed over again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and so he stayed there by the seashore. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came up and, on seeing him, fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her, so that she will get well and live." And he went off with him, and a large crowd was following him and pressing in on him. A woman who had had a hemorrhage for 12 years and had endured much at the hands of many physicians and spent all that she had was not helped at all, but rather had grown worse. After hearing about Jesus, she came in the crowd behind him and touched his cloak. For she thought, "If I touch his garments, I will get well." Immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed from her affliction. Immediately Jesus perceived in himself that power proceeding from him had gone forth, turned around the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" The disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see the woman who had done this. But the woman, fearing and trembling, aware of what had happened to her, came and fell down and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." All right, so what we've got here is interlocking stories. So it starts off with Jairus. He's coming. He's saying, "Hey, heal my daughter." But right before we get to the completion of that story, we get this story that kind of comes in right there in the middle of it. And this woman, she's coming. She's bleeding for 12 years now. We don't know what all this means, how, what all she's gone through, but we know she's suffered for a while now. 12 years is a long time to deal with a single issue there. And it says she suffered much at the hands of doctors. Like, she's got a bunch of people who are running tests on her, trying things, and none of it's working. So this is where she's at. She's distraught. She's at the end of herself. And so she says, "Let me just go to Jesus." And look what happens. She just says, "I just need to touch him." She has faith that just touching Jesus will heal her. So she believes that Jesus is that powerful. She believes that he has this power and this ability to do this for her. But look what happens. He knows that power's gone out. Like, this is one of those interesting moments. Jesus knows somebody's touched him and that power has gone out from him. The disciples are kind of like, how in the world would we know? Like, you've got to see all these people who are touching you. How do you know one person has? And she confesses. She says, "I did it." That has to be something of a bit of a tense moment for her, right? She knows she's going to go and say, "I did this." And really she's letting Jesus know, "I believe that you could do this, and that's why I did it." And look what he says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well." All right, here's where we have to understand. Faith is not merely mental assent, right? Her faith, she believed it, led to her action. What she said she believed, she said, "I think Jesus can heal me," led her to act so that Jesus would heal her. All right. So that's this thing that we always have to keep in mind. It's not enough to say, "Oh, I believe X," or "I believe Y." Yeah, I believe this. If that truth doesn't change the way we're living and what we're doing, then it's pointless. The woman could have said all day until she's blue in the face, "I believe Jesus can heal me." But if she never goes to where Jesus is and she never touches him, she's never going to be healed. Right? Her faith brings about a change in her action that ultimately led to that healing there. And so that's what Jesus is telling her. Hey, because you had faith, because you believed, you're healed. Okay? So those three questions we typically ask here. What does this tell us about God? Well, it tells us about Jesus. He's compassionate. He cares about this woman, right? Like, you see that. He does care about her, and he wants her to be well. But it also shows us that he's got the power to heal her like nobody else can. Then we also see, what does this tell us about us? Well, it does tell us, and it kind of tells us about our faith, that, hey, if we say we have faith, but it's not changing the way we act, then that's going to be a problem. Our faith has to be hand in hand with our action. You can look at the book of James, and that comes in very clearly. You say one thing, but you don't do it. We got a problem. There's a disconnect. So faith leads to action. And then what does it call us to do? Well, it calls us to make sure in our own lives that those things are matching up, that what we say changes what we do. All right, well, everybody, hey, happy Wednesday. I'll see you back